without any further ado, let me introduce our first speaker from Nepal, Biraj Nainabasti. All right. He is currently a high school senior. His love for astronomy and stargazing steamed when he went for stargazing session with his relative during his childhood in Nepal. However, he noticed that he couldn't see the same constellations and dark sky that he could see in Nepal in the United States. After researching the topic and learning about IDA, he has been working hard on addressing light pollution. Biraj's topic will be involving our youth in fighting for dark sky. Welcome, Biraj.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good.
The floor is yours.
Yep. All right. 20 minutes, right?
Yes.
All right. So good morning, afternoon, or evening to everyone in this conference right now from all over the world. First and foremost, I would like to thank IDA and the amazing people behind the 2022 Under One Sky conference that worked incredibly hard to make this event happen in the first place. Additionally, I'm also very thankful for getting this opportunity to give a presentation alongside other amazing people that share the same goal as we all do in making our night skies darker once again. For my presentation, what we'll be focusing on is involving our youth in fighting for darker night skies. All right, so starting off, we have set up a poll here asking at what age did everyone here get interested into stargazing or astronomy? Let's take about a minute or so to get all the results in. All right, so looking at the data here coming in, we can see a sort of distribution here that's mostly right skewed, with a lot of people getting introduced into stargazing when they were from the 6 to 12 years old, and also here in the left with 0 to 6 and from 12 to 20. And this is quite frankly true because most of us as little kids, we see the night sky as like vast openness, and we are inclined to be interested in exploring it. And people tend to discover their passion for stargazing and astronomy when they're in their childhood, or in some cases here, also in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, and even above 50s. Quite an incredible community here we have, to say the least. All right, so moving forward, anyone have certain events that led to this spark of interest? I would just like to understand if like anyone had like gone to a certain event or a notable first date, a celebration that got everyone here interested into stargazing. As we can't have a poll for type out answers, we can just go ahead and type in a chat and look into some cases if anyone wants. And for me, it was going, as Miriam said, it was going stargazing with my relatives in Nepal. And it was like a weekly tradition thing we had. And going there over and over again, I slowly developed my own interest. And that's how I got started with the whole idea of stargazing. All right, that's fine. Moving on. Boy Scout, yeah. I have a lot of friends here that are like Boy Scout, Girl Scout, and they have a lot of stuff dealing with astronomy and stargazing. So that is one common idea that we had. Viewing Haley's comment with my dad, that's really interesting. All right, so moving forward. So here what we have is a study that looks at the age of initial interest in stargazing. In this slide here, this study is from How Astronomers View Education and Public Outreach. an explanatory study by Lisa Dang and Pedro Russo. Looking at this graph, we can see that even during our childhood, the primary time frame where our interest for stargazing starts to develop is during the years 4 to 9 for us. So now we must ask why. Why is it that we're so interested in this grand display in the night sky at our youngest ages? And the answer lies in the fact that kids are very, very, very curious. This shouldn't surprise anyone. Ever since we're born, we have the natural tendency to cause as much chaos and mayhem we can around the house, fidgeting, poking, and prodding everything in our sight. And based off what the study listed, there are 3 things that are really critical when understanding why young children are so keen to their surroundings. First and foremost, during the developmental stages of childhood, kids are developing their brain tissues. During this interval, kids really feed off their curiosity and their innate desire to explore the things around them. Secondly, in order to further stimulate learning and curiosity in kids, we as educators, parents, and even mentors need to help engage youth students in activities that truly helps them perceive a situation and discover the patterns in those situations to explain the causes behind it. Lastly, going along with the previously mentioned ideas, our critical thinking abilities start to mature and develop in our early youth. Therefore, it is clear to see why little kids might be the ones that are most interested in trying to ponder what's out there in the vastness of the sky at night. So before moving forward, just a little bit more about me. I am Biraj, and I'm currently a high school senior student at Westbrook High School here in Beaumont, Texas. However, I was raised in Nepal, and this is where I initially took off for stargazing and astronomy when I was around 8 years old, the age where wonders just devoured me. My parents always told me that if I wasn't eating or watching something, I was definitely breaking or splattering something around the house. Back then, living in a somewhat ruder part of Nepal where light pollution level was quite low, we didn't have that many lampposts. There was just like inside that house lighting and not so much like outside. You could see the whole night sky as for what it was, straight out looking outside your backyard or anything. However, going back 10 years later, 8 years later, things have changed a lot. The culprit, poor lighting practices and lack of policies to address them. And this is quite frankly due to light pollution. However, one thing we need to understand about light pollution is that it doesn't affect our discovery of the night sky at night. We have already seen the night sky for the beauty it is at some point during our life. Therefore, we're still trying to find the same joy in seeing it for what it was first time we saw it and the beauty it was. So that's our main idea and reason behind why we're working towards making darker night skies. However, the youth of our generation, far and wide, this notion is becoming far less common. For instance, we can look at my case in Nepal. A place that once had an insignificant light pollution problem not even 2 decades ago now has become a hotspot for the rapid rise in light pollution that results in a decreased interest for the spectacles in the night sky. This truly ties into the quote here from researcher Christopher Koba. Light is growing most rapidly in places that didn't have a lot of light to start with. In my case, Nepal. That means that the fastest rates of increase are occurring in places that so far hadn't been strongly affected by light pollution. So with all this in mind, we need to ask one question. How can our future generation begin to want darker night skies if they have never experienced the full beauty that is our true night sky with all the constellations and the wonders and the spectacles in the sky? So this is where I started to do my work. My work in Nepal and the USA with involving our youth. So if we're not interested in something, we'll not be inclined to work towards a change for that matter. Therefore, in order to get started with making changes, I had to get people interested, especially little kids in the night dark sky. So what we did was we promoted astronomy clubs in primary schools in Nepal for students ages 8 to 12. Before moving forward, I would like to ask if anyone here has experience using apps like Sky Map, Star Walk, Sky Safari, or other ones off our Apple or Google Play Store. Yeah, there's some interest in them. Yeah, Stellarium's a really good one. I use that as well. Nice. All right. So these apps, though not exactly what we all may want, are really effective at developing interest, especially among young students who are able to like see on their phones or their iPads or tablets what's going on in the night sky above them. And in schools like Bhagwani School, what we did was create small group astronomy clubs, specifically utilizing apps like that SkyMap and Starwalk. And occasionally on some computers, we had the teachers install Stellarium. We were able to show kids certain constellations and pique their interest a little bit. This was all it took. Now we had them wanting to see the spectacles in the night sky with their own eyes in the sky above. This is where we had to introduce them to the problem at hand, which was light pollution. However, there is one problem regarding explaining light pollution. Explaining light pollution for me has been much more from a research standpoint, where I looked at numbers, crunches, and like data, and a whole bunch of other like math stuff, which is not something that a lot of kids enjoy. While this fascinates researchers and number fanatics like myself, the kids, they're not inclined to learn about light pollution from that point of view. They are not great at crunchy numbers, and it's something that's developed through education and practice over time. However, kids are really good at one thing. Like I previously mentioned, they're really good at poking, prodding, and just figuring stuff out by experiencing them. And this is where we utilize demos. So what we did was we sought to help them visualize light pollution using demos like the one here above from DePaul University's paper plate education project. Fun fact, the pictures here are actually from a child as well, an 8-year-old to be exact. Now here, before moving forward, I'd like to ask if anyone else in the chat hasn't familiar with demos like these or introduce kids to these demos and stuff like that. Any specific place where this happened, like nature centers or parks, or that's a picture of Chicago, yes. Light pollution simulator box. Connie Walker has used a demo like this that's I've used, yep. All right, so what this demo consisted of was, what we had was, I think a 12 by 12 by 12 inch, a foot by foot, 12 by 12 by 12 box. We painted it black, and on the inside, like what we have here, we put the background off the place we were around, or in some cases, we just had like local cities. And then we had the flashlight as demonstrated put inside. And then our figurine was in a person, so we didn't have that, but what we used was the dinosaurs and little turtles and stuff like that to represent the figurine that's under the lamppost. And then from here, kids are truly engaged because now they have a 12 by 12 by 12 box that they can touch, probe, and have fun with to understand what's going on. So let's talk about why these demos are so good for kids once again. Kids can visualize really well, a truly critical concept for them. As previously mentioned, to critically think about the subject matter for kids and create pattern, they need to create patterns and ideas in their brain to fully understand and comprehend the situation. When they see the lighting differences, the oohs and ahs that radiate the environment truly show that they understand the concept. So moving back into how we utilize the model, what we did was we started off with like just a blank model without the figurine there, and with the flashlight on without the hood on. That way, they were not able to see the figurine at hand. They were just seeing the city, and they're like, this might be like a experiment showing how you can see the city with a light. However, when we put the hood on and then they see the figurine in the bottom, then their minds start to turn. It's like, what happened? Like, I didn't see that before. And that's where we're able to slowly engage them into understanding what light pollution is and how it's an issue that affects what's directly under us. Because when the light from the lampposts are going outside the sky above, it just radiates the whole entire environment. It goes to the city, goes to our clouds, and just leads to further light pollution. However, by using hooded infrastructure and hooded lampposts, we're able to get what they want to see, the figurine, shown. And this is how we work towards getting kids to understanding what light pollution was. In this next picture, we have a picture of what I was working on. I don't think the box is being able to be shown here. It's behind the little black duffel box, but we had the box there and we had kids looking in, and overall it was a really good event. And just the idea of kids being able to see it in person and look at it and visualize it and just see the different changes as we put the hood on, without the hood on, it's truly an incredible thing for the kids. And that's, I think, our biggest aim and goal at helping kids understand what light pollution is and working and becoming future dark sky workers or future people who want to make our night skies darker again. So now that we got the kids both interested and understanding of what light pollution is, how can we get them involved in pushing for darker night skies? So what we did was we thought that we could get started on helping them with making a semi-petition system with like little notes that we could send to city officials, sending these small notes to government officials, mostly city officials in like the local cities, we were involving the kids in something that they could carry on doing for the rest of their lives, making changes through pushing for better policies. Before moving forward, I'd like to ask if anyone here has previous experience working with policymakers or bill makers in your local cities, or even like neighborhood consultants with trying to get better lighting practices going on. I'll read through a couple of the answers here. The big advantage of the box is that you can show the unaffected sky also in urban areas and get the kid and get the wonder to the kids. Yeah, that's the whole. That's a really good point of it, and it's truly amazing to how like kids can really understand the idea with the box. And I think that's like their biggest goal moving forward is like getting these demos out to kids so that they can like fully understand what's going on. Waiting on responses for the policy if anyone has previous experience on this. Yes, it's tough to get started, but then it gets easier as time goes on. We're still on like the starting phase, so that's why our agenda is moving quite slow in Nepal. But moving forward, no matter how slow the policy agenda might be, kids were the agent of action here, and that's the most important part. Their efforts were contributing to raising awareness and hopefully changing the futures in their communities. I personally did follow through with some of these petitions, and what I did was I had my own presentation for them, and I introduced some lighting policy ordinances that have worked in places previously and have been successful. And I also showed that to the city officials. And in Nepal, there's a lot of conflicts going on, a lot of other issues with like policy that doesn't really make room or space for this right now. But I think with gradual effort and just being persistent in our effort of like making sure that they look at this agenda and like we have work here and we need to make a change here. Hopefully something can happen in the future. And like I've said, the kids are the agents of action here. Their petitions, and when they grow up, their voice is going to be the main thing in helping make sure this issue gets addressed. So to recap, first things first, we had to get the kids interested in astronomy and the night sky we love. And utilizing our astronomy club and demos, we were able to do this to kids. And then secondly, figuring out how to introduce them to the concept of light pollution. This is where the 12 by 12 by 12 box demo happens, and they're able to see fully what's hindering their ability to see the night sky. And the cause of that being light pollution, they're sort of like, they start to develop the idea of that with the 12 by 12 by 12 box. And then third step is taking actions through either petitions or even outreach. And petitions were used initially for little kids, and outreach was something I did, but now as the kids grow older, what we're planning on doing with them is hopefully having them also go to city officials and talk on a regular basis so that the agenda gets highlighted a bit more deeply and more people in the city and the officials in the government are inclined to make these changes. So now let's look at a little bit of post-involvement in Nepal. So at schools, astronomy clubs are still very strong. As we've had new kids coming to the schools, older students who I was able to teach are now teaching the new students about astronomy and stargazing. Sky Safari, Sky Map, and all those apps are still being used. And the demos that, like the box that we sent them, is still being utilized to show the effect of light pollution. And then at the policy level, like I've said previously, the agenda is moving quite slowly, but we're gradually making progress towards passing lighting policy infrastructure ordinances in certain Nepali communities. And in some cases, what we have is kids in their local neighborhoods. What they're doing is they have these lampposts now that, because of improved like urbanizing of Nepal cities, they have lampposts there and they're not hooded. So some kids, seeing what they've learned, they've asked their parents to go hood it, and that's truly incredible to see from my standpoint, because it shows kids are taking their own stance and they're making their own ideas and working towards making sure that light pollution is not an issue moving forward in the future. And hopefully they will be successful in their job and overtake us and get good work done in the future. And with that, these are the citations that I've used in my presentations. And thank you for my time. And once again, I'd like to thank IDA and everyone involved